Hi, everybody. This is Scott Homan, director of Witness Underground.
And I'm Ryan Sutter, the proprietor of Nuclear Gopher Productions.
Hey everybody, real quick before we get started with the Halloween episode featuring Wesley David and Wesley David music, Ryan and I chat with Wesley about all kinds of things, and it's a really fun episode. We dive into the religion more than we ever have before, which is interesting, and especially about music. David he's like a touring musician, and he's back. He just got back to the West Coast after a tour out east. So I wanted to just quick say that we have a t-shirt that we just launched. It's two different t-shirt designs on a bunch of different colors, a bunch of different products, a bunch of different every size you can think of. That supports our next film project. That supports the concert November 12th in Minneapolis with the Sound Unseen Music and Film Festival and the Hook and Ladder concert venue. And so please buy a t-shirt because that only runs for the next 3 weeks, and that supports our whole operation, and we'd really appreciate it. Supports the film, supports XW coming out. Like, it's all one thing, and it goes towards those causes. And then if you do go to the show November 12th in Minneapolis, there'll be t-shirts there to buy, but they're limited colors, options, and sizes. And right now you can watch the film at the Portland Film Festival. And if you are in the Minneapolis area or you're willing to travel and you're nearby, like in Wisconsin, Iowa, or in the countryside, Minnesota, please come down and Chicago. A lot of Chicago connections to the the Jehovah's Witness music scene back there. And it'd be really cool to see some more folks that came up to the Madison Film Festival come up to the Minneapolis one and bring your friends. All those tickets are on sale now for the Women's Club at 6 o'clock on November 12th. Shows at 6:30, goes to 8:30. Tickets are $12. And the Hook and Ladder after party is going to feature 3 bands. It's Ryan Sutter music, Puff Puff, covers of the Lavone songs, and a huge finale with High TV. It's going to be an incredibly amazing thing. It's easily like the pinnacle of everything we wish we could achieve with this film. It's happening, and someone's threw the party for us at a film festival. So they really wanted to celebrate our film through making it a marquee, key event of the year for their festival. And they really wanted to highlight the film. So buy your tickets to come see the film there in person. And we're going to have a merch table. James is going to sell his book. We're going to have CDs of all the bands and a sampler you can get. And we're going to do a pre-sale for the vinyl that's coming out pretty soon. Well, it'll come out probably early next year, but it's a pre-sale if you want to get involved in the vinyl. That'll help us fund the operation. But anyway, show up for that. Buy your tickets now. The after party is going to be insane. It's going to be at the Hook and Ladder Theater and Lounge after the screening at the Women's Club. Thank you. Enjoy the episode.
I wish I could be there. I'm playing a piano show on the 12th for the thing. Everything will be recorded, right? The performance. I take it in Minneapolis.
Oh, actually, that's a lovely segue. Scott, do you want to talk about what's going to happen with the performance on the 12th?
So Eric Elvendahl in the film connected us with a director, a music film director, who is very talented and has made amazing music videos and live performance films for artists going back 20 years, bands you've heard of, The Faint. He did, I can't remember. Maybe you can remember.
Soul Asylum, Low, Mason Jennings.
Yeah,
cool. His IMDb page is as long as your arm.
It's amazing, and he just it gave this Google Doc of just links of amazing shit he's made for 20 years, and so he's working with us. We hired him on as a director, and I guess Ryan's primarily funding it, and I'm helping with a bunch of it. I'm going to be shooting, as there's going to be 4 primary shooters, so Dan Hutting, and then his guy Aaron, and myself, and my DP, Andrew Martin from A. Martin Visuals. And then we have 3 friends. James from the film is going to help us shoot, and his kid is going to shoot, and then one of their family, cousins. And it was a 7-camera crew going to be filming this thing. We're working on curating a performance for every single, a performance art piece for every single song in the set if we can. And we have a lighting director we've hired who's going to be curating a unique lighting situation, I don't know what to call it, for every single song to set for the mood. We're going all out. This
is great.
It's going to be crazy. And
I feel terrible. I'm going to miss it, but I'll catch the recording for sure. It sounds awesome.
Yeah. It's basically going to be
You better not screw up, Ryan. That's all I have to say.
I know. No pressure. I just haven't got on stage and performed any of my own music in most of a decade, so no problem.
It'll second nature though.
It'll come back to me. I mean, it's not like I haven't been playing gigs since I was 15. I think I can hack it.
My original concept for this was to maybe swap out the last scene of the film And you started this conversation tonight with how much you loved the last scene of the film as it is now.
Yeah.
And Ryan has in the past said,
And the song, and the song too, in the credits. That's what. Yeah.
the film. Oh yeah, you were talking about the credits song. That's right. The
Yeah.
last live song is the one I was thinking about replacing. Maybe like
Okay.
add something to change the film, make it more of a big finale because there'll be so much to work with by filming this thing. Anyway, the film stands on its own and people love it and it makes people feel something. Even my DP, he watched it this week and he's like, "Holy shit, dude!" Like, and I had to step out of work for half an hour for us to talk about how he felt and what he thought of it and like how he connected personally with it as someone who grew up in some kind of Christian religion. It was just interesting because like he has no connection, he had nothing about Witnesses. But anyway, we're talking about making this into like a second film, or like maybe we'll use it for small pieces that like tell bigger, nuance, more parts of the story or something.
I just feel like the one semi-heavy thing I'll say, if you guys will let me, is that it feels like all the weird shit you go through leaving a situation like a kind of kooky religion. When things come full circle in your life, there's something very beautiful and healing about it. For me, that has happened a lot, and it has taken a lot of years to kind of pierce through the I would almost say amnesia, but I think the right word is kind of repression, or just kind of like keeping the past away, or keeping the painfulness of it away when you lose people. And in some cases, people I've now reconnected with, including some musicians who I had not spoken to in 10 or 12 years, who are very dear to me. So when something is able to come full circle and kind of bring you back to the reality, the lived experience of your life, it's very healing. And I think that's what you guys are doing, and that's what's so cool about the kind of the bands reuniting and getting back to the music.
Yeah,
we brought this point up a few times. I'm glad you pointed that out. We brought this up a few times, that like there's a lot of stuff on the internet that is pretty much there to debunk the Witnesses or talk about the downsides to the organization, and that wasn't the goal.
Structure of the Watchtower Society and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but that wasn't the goal of this at all. This was basically to talk about how you can use art to, reestablish establish yourself as a person and recover from a difficult situation.
Right.
I lost everything.
Yeah.
And it was actually really hard. This whole movie thing was really hard for me. I've tried to express to Scott on a few occasions how hard it's been, but I don't think I ever can. It was really, really tough for me to do it, but I was never like questioning whether I should. But I think that it is I think it's great that we can sort of put on film and show that here's a bunch of people who did this and they healed. And what's super cool, what I love, is how many people that I've just never even heard about, I've just only heard about since the movie came out. How many other Witnesses were using music like a drug too? They were doing this too.
We were in Pennsylvania. I mean, our
so
scene is a little smaller, but very similar otherwise.
Well, I think it's a really fertile ground to get people to want to create. Just start by telling them that they could die next Tuesday, and they're living in this apocalyptic like story, and then have them have normal human emotions and normal human urges and stuff, and then they're like, how do I channel this in some way that will not get me in trouble or lose my favor with God? And it's like, well, I can make music, and it's kind of cool. I strongly suspect there's a lot of witness kids still doing the same thing, and I hope there are. I know there are, obviously.
Case in point, a guy reached out to me last night. This happens more and more as this film is getting known about. They're like, "Hey, I saw your trailer and it looks awesome. I was in a Witness band. In fact, I'm still a Witness," he wrote me, "but I'm not." He's like, "I'm inactive. I haven't gotten de-affed. I'm thinking about writing my disassociation letter. But check out this studio that I run. I work with this band." And it was like a country, psychedelic, like had a sitar, just really interesting band. It was like Sergeant Pepper meets like Southern country rock.
Nice.
He's like Luke Bryan or something.
Actually, don't know Luke Bryan.
Luke Bryan. He's like a famous country guy. He was on American Idol or The Voice. One of those.
I know
as a
precious
judge.
little about reality television.
That's good. You guys will live longer,
Country music.
a lot longer.
I'll send you a link to this guy. But what was also cool is he sent me this link to this beautiful music video with this incredibly interesting song, and I loved it. And then he sent me a video from like 2 years ago when he played the International Convention in Atlanta, and it was like they had like a live after party where his like southern rock band was just like shredding, and everyone's dancing with like sombreros. Like this is what Jehovah's Witnesses are doing now. Like,
Wow, that's cool.
Pretty interesting. Yeah.
Ryan, as an aside, you probably can't realize this because you're drinking so heavily, but your name says Ranjuro at the
Oh, it
bottom.
went back to that again.
I think the audience is going to be very confused about who you are, even though you look and sound the same as the last segment.
Yeah, I
That's
didn't
4
become a
separate
different
syllables
person.
now. Wesley
I know.
David.
You know, all that is
mysterious.
a nod to one of my favorite Akira Kurosawa films, Sanjuro, and I just turned it into my first initial as a online name to use for, it's like a web handle. And I don't know why Zoom thinks that's my name because I don't have a Zoom account and I'm not logged onto it. So I don't know how it's getting that.
I think to add one thing to this is that the whole thing with your brother and the amount of people who showed up and that you still were shunned. It was very powerful, and almost everybody. In fact, most witnesses I know, I thought what I went through was bad, but most witnesses I know, especially on Instagram, have been through a more traumatic like shunning experience than I personally went through. And I just think that a lot of witnesses and maybe people also have come out of similar religious organizations can relate to how extreme your story is and how kind of almost textbook your story is in a way, with just what happened and how they treated you. I don't know there's a point in me saying that, but I just wanted to, is one thing I took away from the documentary also. That's all.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing, I will say what's interesting, the non-witness members of my extended family, they were not impressed by that, right? Like that, you want to talk about making a good witness. That type of behavior does not make a very good witness.
Right.
It really sends a pretty bad message, as well it should. It's not good behavior. Interesting thing about that day was because I wasn't allowed to be there, and because I did actually show up at the funeral. I was there, but they didn't really want me there, and nobody talked to me the whole time, and I spent half of it outside. But I did make a film, like a little tribute to Rhett, and I put photos and his music and this whole thing, and they had an AV system set up to show exactly that kind of thing, and it was like this huge. It was the one thing that I fought, was like, you got to at least show the video I've made of Rhett. I'm like, I promise I'm not in here. I'm not talking, but like, I have to have this video, and this video is still available online. It's on YouTube. But they didn't want to even show that, even just because I made it. Wild. I can't even imagine that, like, from in any other context from any other group.
Well, it's inhumane, would be putting it nicely. And Mormons do something similar. Scientologists is actually a much smaller numerically organization than you would think by how public they are, but they do the same thing. Any number of smaller fringe kind of groups do something like shunning. Were you guys have been doing this podcast for a bit now, so maybe you've covered some of this ground, but were you angrier than you let on in the documentary? In the documentary, it's also another sort of surprising thing that least you talk a good game about kind of feeling actually compassionate towards folks still in the organization. Can you give us any
Yeah.
insider to your state of mind there?
Yeah, no, I don't think I am being in any way disingenuous when I say that I was incredibly angry. But it wasn't directed at them and it wasn't directed at the witnesses. It was more like being, like if you're having, this is going to seem like a lame example, but if you're having like a day where your alarm clock doesn't go off and then your car breaks down and all this shit happens throughout the course of a day and you're sort of mad at that everything is just coming down on you,
right,
and you don't feel like it's anybody's actual fault.
right.
That's the type of anger that I felt for a really long time. And I don't really struggle with it much anymore, but it was like, I felt like, well, it's not really my family's fault because they've been told this whole thing in a way that was convincing enough that they can't see past it. It's not necessarily even like the fault of like I've done similar shunning, right? Like my mom left the witnesses before I did, and I shunned her. And I mean, I still was humane to her, and I even let her move in with me when she wound up pregnant in her second after her and my dad split up. And she was disfellowshipped, and I let her come stay with me because she needed somewhere to go, and humanity trumped, religion. But the fact is it's really hard to be personally angry at people who are doing something where you know that you would have done something like that in their position. But I was really angry at like just the fact that I felt so powerless. Like it felt like there wasn't anything that I could do to change the situation. I felt, and that's a really impotent kind of anger where you feel like it's not personal. I don't have anywhere to direct it. Even getting mad at the people at the watchtower doesn't help, right?
Yeah.
It's just you just feel like you stubbed your toe and your car's broken down and your cat broke his foot and everything sucks and you can't do anything about any of it and you can't even get mad at anybody.
You feel totally
that was the type of
helpless.
anger I had.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And, so that's why I don't carry personal animosity towards those people. There are a couple individual witnesses who I don't particularly feel good about, but it wasn't because of any of that. It was, it's really hard. I actually think it would be easier if I felt like there was an obvious place to place my anger. And as it is, I have more empathy for the individuals. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I think I have felt similarly, generally speaking, towards like the idea of just average folks in the organization. I was more angry at my parents, but I was also angry at the society and the governing body and the leadership, and a lot of the, I think, appropriate anger, especially on Reddit, is directed towards, for the most part, the society and the governing body and the pick a scandal. There's so many things to be upset about.
There are definitely individual leaders that I could be angry about. Of course, the current leadership is not the people who made the world that caused my problems.
Right.
But I do feel really angry at the universe in general that like I've been robbed of the last 18 years with my father. Right. Like my dad and I are never going to ever have a relationship again. He's 70 years old now. I'm probably just never going to have a relationship with my dad again. That sucks. That's horrible. And there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably the craziest. Somebody tell me if you have a different opinion. I would say it's probably the most salient and generally most traumatic part of leaving the organization. Probably more, if I've told many a therapist about this, that it's less, in my mind, it's less the general kookiness of the beliefs are normal when you believe them and when you're a kid and you don't know any better. It is actually something in the leaving and the aftermath, which is very difficult and very frustrating. Where I think is the kind of almost the PTSD like stuff, at least for me, the worst in the first 2 years thereafter, and I got better as I went to college and did some things and re-socialized myself, which was the biggest, probably the biggest helping factor, even more so than I feel like building back some amount of my own kind of beliefs about the world. The socialization was the best part.
Totally concur. I think what's really weird is, and I think it's hard for people who haven't lived through it to understand.
Right.
It's actually easier to deal with somebody who actually does pass away than somebody who you know is still alive and out there walking around somewhere, but for some reason you're not allowed to even talk to them or see them or have anything to do with it. That's actually much worse, because I can make peace with losing Rhett. You know, Rhett's not still walking around out there somewhere, and I just can't talk to him. And the last time I saw him, it was wonderful. I wasn't a witness anymore, but he treated me really well. And I was dating this girl at the time who's now been my wife for the last 15 years. And, you know, the last time I saw him, we just ran into him by accident. He was working a cell phone kiosk selling cell phones at Walmart. And Esther and I just popped in to pick something up, and there was Rhett, and we talked to him, and he was super nice and friendly, and he gave Esther a big hug, and he turned to me and he was like, she's great. She's worldly. Like, she was never a witness or anything. You know, he's like, she's great. She's like the best one you've ever dated. And it was just great. It was really nice. I had no idea it was the last time I was ever going to see him. But the fact that I have this kind of closure to that situation doesn't make it easy, but in some ways it's like I've had that versus kind of a living death with my dad for, you know, going on 17, 18 years. That's harder in a lot of ways, because you just, you know, he's just down the street. Like, I could just drive down there, you know, like for 10 years I lived 2 miles away from him and I never saw him.
It's interesting to bring up it's like a grieving process. You're comparing a real grieving process to a process that doesn't really have any definition and closure. And I've looked this up a few times. I just don't know how to quite put it into have a conversation. I'd like to talk to like someone who deals with this all the time. But there's like the 7 stages of grief.
Yeah.
And the first one is anger and like helplessness, and then it transitions. And I feel like this film is about loss. And Ryan, you go through like 7 different losses. You lose your youth and innocence. You lose your faith and your community and your access to your friends in the music scene. I guess that's your community. And then, you different relationships with your parents and your brother. And it's like, man, like all
also divorce. I got divorced there too.
Yeah, and a divorce, right? It's like so much. And like, is there the rug was pulled out from underneath you in the biggest possible way, and it happens to a similar but lesser extent to most people who get disfellowshipped or even just realize they don't believe, or like any one of those things is already tragic for the average person. And you dealt with all of them, and like hit after hit after hit. Every time you turn around, it seems like in the film you're just losing someone or something.
That was a shit year, man. I gotta tell you. You know, here's the thing though. I had this epiphany yesterday. I was doing some writing. My laptop, by the way, right now is sitting on top of my beloved Olivetti Praxis 48 typewriter from the 1970s, which is wicked cool. And I sometimes sit out here and I just write. It's kind of one of my little morning routines, and I don't want electronic devices or anything interrupting me. So I have some typewriters, and I'll pick my favorite one for the day. I was writing the other day and I had this sort of realization. I was like, well, okay, so my parents raised me as a witness to my first adulthood at age 18. And I was raised under a certain set of beliefs, views, ideas about the world, ideas about myself and my life. And then I lived as a witness until I was 30. And that first sort of adulthood didn't go awesome, right? And then I went through all of this other stuff. And I started celebrating my birthday. So I just celebrated my 18th birthday. So I raised myself this time. And now I just hit adulthood for the second time, right? Like but now I've been raised as a non-witness for 18 years. And now I get to just, you know, now this is all happening. And I was like, this is well timed. This is like right when I've hit adulthood number 2, I've raised myself a second time. I think I did a pretty okay job with it. I mean, sure, I took up cigars and scotch, but whatever. And I was like, wow, I like that idea. Like, instead of feeling like I'm, you know, I've wasted all these years or whatever. I'm like, no. I hit a reset button. I started again. And then I went through all the maturation process a second time, but this time under a new set of rules. And now I'm a grown up, but this time I'm a grown up with a, you know, like a not fake set of beliefs about the world, which is kind of cool. So that was my big epiphany while writing before work a couple days ago. And I was like, I've got these pieces of paper over here with all this typed out on it, but I made it much shorter. And I was kind of like, I was looking at it, I was like, yeah, this is cool. You know, I'm good. I'm good with this. I'm only on year 1. I'm just like, I just hit 18. I'm like, this is cool. I like this.
Cool.
You can go to war now.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Just at 18. Adulthood number 2 would be a good band or song name, I think.
Mhm.
Adulthood number 2.
It might make its way into the new record
yeah.
I'm working on.
You asked
Right.
me.
Oh, sweet. Nice.
Oh yeah, that's a good segue. Your new record you're working on, and where are you going to record it, and what is this new feature that's going to start 2022, 2023? Right.
Well, I mean, for one thing, I'm going to bring nucleargopher.com back as an indie label. And it's not just going to be the old Nuclear Gopher, but now with X Witnesses. It's just going to be a good old fashioned 90s indie record label doing DIY cool stuff that is like, I'm not against, and I've been very tech forward my whole life. So I'm very in favor of having the Bandcamps and the Spotifys and the titles and the streaming services and all the stuff. I mean, I love that everybody can get their stuff distributed, but I personally still find that the primary value of indie music and DIY art in general is small, close communities with intimate connections, whether you just go see some band play at some artist play at some show, and then they're back at their own merch table and you buy a t-shirt or a CD or a tape or a record from them. And like, you now kind of know them a little bit, or you feel like you know them a little bit. And it's kind of impersonal the way the internet works now, where the music goes online and a bunch of random people look at a bunch of playlists and nobody has anything tangible out of that. And I miss the tangible stuff. Like, there's a guy who had a Nuclear Gopher sample tape that we released in the 90s. And, you know, he sends me a picture on Facebook of like, dude, look what I found in a closet. I still have the tape, you know?
Wow.
And
that's amazing.
Awesome. You know,
yeah.
Like, wow, dude, that physical artifact has survived 20 something years and you can still stick it in and play it, right? You're not renting it. You're not streaming it. It's not viral. It's not whatever. It's like, it's legit. And so for me, that pure passion of just like music being a way to allow people to say what they want to say what they feel, and to connect with other people who resonate with it. That's what I want Nuclear Gopher to be. That's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, because it's what I've done my whole life. It's what I care about. So that's happening. And frankly, I've been kind of struggling since it ended to figure out what my relationship with music and art was supposed to be going forward. Like, I had this kind of well-defined role of like, oh, well, I'm doing this thing to help give us all a place to make this stuff that is important to us. And we're not aiming to make it big. We're not aiming to like become rock stars and leave the Witnesses and go off and tour Europe or whatever. We're just making this because it's good for us, like psychologically, to do this. And I miss that. And I love when, you know, and I still play in a local indie band and I still do music stuff, and I've never stopped, right? But I'm to feel like there's a good enough, I've been writing music. I never stopped writing and recording music, but I sort of stopped releasing it. So it was like, what's the point? You know, I can record it and hear it for myself, but I don't know why I need to go through the trouble of pressing it, distributing it, sharing it, because I don't necessarily know that I'm trying to connect with the community. And now I feel like I want to connect with the community through music.
Yeah.
It's very cool. And I love, so that's my big thing. This movie's kind of given me that, it's given me that mojo back, which I love.
It's awesome, man. Labels still matter for sure. Indie labels without question still matter. DIY and like emerging artists, but that's probably one of the big. I've been very skeptical of many things, but also like internet and social media, which I have acclimated myself to actually because it does seem to be a way to, now you can find your community, you can find your niche with social media, despite all of its horrible and annoying elements, but you can get your stuff out there. And I think find your audience. If anything, give you 10 seconds on where I'm at is I was in and out of bands. So the piano thing's been like a day job, but I was in and out of bands. My original music, as soon as I got out of college, I was 26, 27, and in and out of bands. I moved to LA like everybody else does, and in and out of bands there, which didn't work out for any number of reasons. And it was actually kind of pre where we're at now, because the music industry changed a lot. And I'm sure you know about this, Ryan, but with torrenting and before we had Spotify, before we had even a semblance of the structure we have now for musicians to make at least some money and have a better way to sell merch and stuff like that. We were in like another period of the Wild West for a few years, like post Napster, where it was tough. Yeah, it was very challenging. Mm-hmm. Those are the years I was failing in bands, but now I feel like, if anything, a little more optimistic that you can be a DIY musician and get some traction. And if you find the community that matters to you, and that your art can matter too, mm-hmm. You can use it strategically to get something out there.
Oh, I agree completely. I think you can use both, right? And
yeah,
that's the cool part. You don't just release your masterpiece on 25 hand dubbed cassettes that you only distribute to 25 people, right? Like that, you can do that. It's cool, but I think the best part is to just use all the tools that are now available. And I love that all these tools are, I mean, I would have murdered to have streaming available when I was streaming stuff on, a 14.4 modem in 1995.
Right. Yeah.
It's.
I remember Flash Player, Real Player. You guys had on the dock. That was great.
Oh hell yeah!
Real Player. Yeah. Hell yeah.
If you remember from the doc, I mean, like I started working in software engineering, and I'm like 10 years older than you. So I started my first programming job was 1994, and the internet was not even in regular conversation.
And you were self-taught on like you pretty much taught yourself.
Mostly, yeah.
That's unbelievable.
I had a Commodore VIC-20 and learned BASIC when I was in elementary school, and
wow.
I taught myself programming, and then I got married a couple months out of high school to my high school girlfriend, who I had gotten publicly reproved for having sex with, and as one does, because I was a rock and roll rebel, and I hated the fact that there were no jobs available. Right?
Would it be sexist of me to say, hell yeah, man? I don't know. It was a long time ago, right?
So.
If she was your wife too. So.
Yeah. Well, and I have a kid from that marriage. I have a 27-year-old son.
Same day, actually. You got reproved for the conceiving of a child.
Oh. No, that's not true. That is not true. That is not what happened.
It's the one time, folks.
But I remember about 6 months after we got married, I was working at a factory, and I turned to her one day after I came home from a 12-hour shift, and I was like, this sucks. I can't go to college. I need a job. I don't know what to do. And she said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I like programming computers. So I went to like a really brief, essentially a boot camp, like a little tech thing that was like a few months. And I got a little slip of paper that said that I could kind of use a computer. And I used that to kind of bluff my way into my first programming job. And that's what I've been doing ever since. So I managed on the minimum possible education.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's very intrepid. It's awesome.
Well, it was also why I put Nuclear Gopher online. It was like an excuse to learn how to do technology.
Right.
So it all comes together. But I'm saying, like, cool. I got to say that the music streaming and technology stuff, I was always trying to figure out how to get to where the world is now.
Yeah.
In terms of the tech. And now that it's here, I'm like, man, when I find a really good band, the first thing I want to do is buy their vinyl. And I want to actually interact with them in person.
Yeah.
Makes
I'll
a
buy
great
your record.
gift to whoever's watching right now.
You tell me
what
where
album
to
is
order
that?
that. I
Can you
will go
plug it?
buy
Grandma will enjoy.
I'm buying
No,
it.
and Ryan, I'd like to send you a copy. In all seriousness, there's pretty much almost every song is about the organization one way or another, but a couple in particular are about going out in service and recollections of those times, and kind of thoughts and feelings about the organization, and comparing it in some ways to social media and dynamics that are normal now for society. So I'd like to send you a copy and get your take on it.
I listen to vinyl all the time. I'll take it if you got a copy. I'll trade you.
Awesome. Yeah, man. I'd love to hear if you got a cassette or anything, or I'll take I'm gonna dive into the Nuclear Gopher stuff for sure. Wow.
Yeah, there's some weird stuff there, and it does start like when we first started recording Nuclear Gopher stuff. We were recording on like a tape recorder at home, so it goes from super primitive through hey, we got a 4-track to oh my god, you can record on computers.
I had a Tascam. I grew up with a nice. I grew up with a Tascam.
Nice.
Yeah, I've got all my cassettes are here with me. Actually, what you said before about your friend finding the tape, a close friend of mine, I've known for a long time, who lives in Pennsylvania, who's not a witness. She was a Seventh-day Adventist, which is part of how we connected. They're similar in some
They're like our
ways.
cousins. They both of
Similar.
those splintered from the same event.
Yeah. Some quirks that are similar. But she has a cassette of mine when I was 18 or 19, which blew my mind that somebody else that is still existed.
Actually, at the show
cool.
on the 12th, we're going to play a song that was the third song that me and Rhett ever recorded as the Lavone. And it's from 1986, and we recorded it originally on a cassette player sitting in the middle of the room. And we're going to play that live in 2 weeks.
Which song
Awesome.
is that?
My Adventure Flowerland.
Awesome. I was hoping that's what you're going to say. That's cool. It's
So
quirky
Cindy's
whimsical.
gonna. So I'm sorry, man. I'm jumping in.
That's
No,
right.
go ahead.
Go for it.
Cindy's gonna be singing a bunch of songs, right?
That's right.
Yes.
With High TV and Chloe.
TV.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not Chloe, because Chloe's other two members are still witnesses. That would be
Okay.
my brother and
Wow.
my sister. Yeah.
They might cover a Chloe song
Right.
for old time's sake, but definitely High TV set will be like, I think it's like 8 songs or something.
We
Cool.
did play one of the Chloe songs in the movie.
Yeah.
We played
The tune you wrote
the
me.
tune you wrote me. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Ryan. So Cindy's other bandmate that was original songwriter was Ryan's little sister, and so Ryan sang the parts and played the parts that his little sister would have played for that song in the movie.
Yeah.
Which was on purpose, and it was beautiful.
Do you have any other family members that were witnesses or that were musicians that you played with, just out of curiosity?
In my family, my sister and I were in versions of a band. We did our high school talent show, and we did a couple of witness parties. And friends of mine, I played drums in my best friend's group, which we sort of came up with together, and then he played bass. And he's now, I'd like to connect all you guys. He's basically out of the organization. He's professional musician, like for a living, playing bass in a Rolling Stones tribute band and a couple other ventures he has. Yeah, in the Northeast, he's really talented. But
nice.
Is your sister still witness or
no? She's out. My situation has been a little unique. My immediate family left the organization. Some of my extended family stayed in and is still in.
Okay.
But my sister and my parents are out of the organization.
Good.
I was actually going to. I know. Every time I look at Scott, I feel like I'm gonna laugh, or so I feel a strange feeling inside. But
these aren't real. They're just a costume. For anyone who's listening to this, I have horns on, devil horns. It's Halloween. Halloween at work today.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. Ryan, some of the video stuff we experimented with a little bit of it. There may be 4 or 5 bands, but there was like my sister and another one and then another one after that. But we experimented a little with video, but we never really took it. I seriously. So were you the person who spearheaded most of that for those bands in Minneapolis, or can you talk about that for a second?
Yeah, not as much. A lot of the video stuff was actually because of James, who's also in the documentary. James was, well, the first, we had occasionally shot some like home video stuff, when I was in like middle school and early high school, but James had this videography class that he took where he got to take home some video equipment for school and he had to shoot some stuff. So we were in the middle of recording this album called Purple Triangles, Visor Minds. And James brought his camera over and started filming us when we were recording the album. We were doing it at this guy's house, Chad Asselford. And once James had his camera, he kept wanting to make new movies, right? So he was like, oh, can we shoot a video for this? Can we shoot a video for that? And so a lot of times when it was for our music, I would wind up kind of directing the whole thing, but it was usually James who was like, hey, let's do this. And then I want to say late 90s, I got a Mac that could do Firewire in, and I could shoot DV and I could bring it in and edit it, like early iMovie type stuff. And then James and I kind of started doing these movie making weekends where we would get together and we would just shoot stuff, and that kind of became this other we made like this fake documentary about a guy who is an obsessive mini golfer, and we did these a couple nights where we went to the Uptown area in the Twin Cities and we filmed like on the deserted streets in Minneapolis at night. And we filmed these like weird movies where like these guys are all like dressed in the same costume and they're trying to make everybody happy. And this guy dies of cancer. And it's just really weird stuff, like Kermit the Frog singing on the newspaper box. And we just started filming this random stuff, and we would just sort of dub these VHS tapes and share them with each other. And that was, pre-internet, but it was super fun. And we took it a lot more seriously than it probably deserved.
It's really creative. Yeah, it's great. What's the song with you, like your head is sticking out of the table and food, you're being served food. Yeah. What was that one?
That's called She Cooked Me Up and Ate Me for Dinner.
Nice.
And that was one of Rhett's songs from the Lavone.
Okay.
And that video was all my idea. Rhett had been seeing this girl and she dumped him, and he was all upset, and he wrote this song about kind of, like the Hall & Oates Man-Eater kind of idea of like, she destroyed me kind of thing. I was like, let's take it literal. Let's just have, I'll be the guy, and I'll be like a severed head on a plate, and I'll get killed in all these different ways, and it'll be super funny.
It was great.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, it was awesome.
It was pretty fun to do. I remember getting Reed in a dress and putting nail polish on him and having him with knives and guns, and I was like, yeah, the witnesses, our witness friends will totally understand. And it was like, no,
it's kind of edgy-ish to be a witness and do some of that stuff.
I thought people.
I'm not sure I would have been allowed to do it if my parents had found out.
Yeah, I don't think allowed was the word. My parents probably weren't home when we did it.
Yeah.
The best part about that video, though, is when I'm like the head in the table at the end of the video. My two brothers are both dancing around the kitchen and they're singing, and I'm sort of, stuck in this table. And Rhett decides that it would be really funny to start sprinkling condiments on my head. So he goes and he gets some soy sauce and he pours it on my forehead, and it like goes down. And then they start sprinkling salt and pepper on my head. And then Rhett grabs cayenne pepper, pours it directly in my eyes. And as I'm about to scream in pain, my brother Reed sticks an apple in my mouth. So the end of the video, I'm sitting there, there's like 5 seconds left in the song, and my eyes are burning out because I've basically just been maced, and I have an apple stuck in my mouth, and I'm sitting here stuck in this table going like, hold on, just a couple more seconds, the song's almost over. And then like as soon as the camera cut, I like flipped all this stuff off of me, and I like flipped the table over, and I had to run my eyes underwater for like 20 minutes. I was blind for like 10. It was
wow.
It was hilarious. And I was so pissed at Red. I'm like, why would you put cayenne pepper in my eyes? He's like, I don't know. I thought it was funny.
That does make the video better watching it a second time, knowing that that's what happens.
Yeah, I'm in severe pain at the end of the video there.
There's
It's worth
soy
it, man.
sauce, like,
Suffer
running down.
for art.
Yeah. So I was getting, you can see it on my face in the video that I was really, that was not planned, right? They weren't like, oh, we'll pour condiments on you. That just happened. And
I love how your eyes move around. You're like,
yeah, the soy sauce
"Oh."
goes down and I'm sitting there thinking, what the fuck are these idiots doing?
Yeah, it's funny. It's good stuff.
Don't do that. Don't pour
What's-
cayenne pepper in your eyes. That's just
You guys might have been the only. There's probably no way to verify this, but you may have been one of the only group of witnesses in the country that did those kind of music videos at that level at that time.
I bet so. That's my guess.
I don't know.
I almost hope that's not
We
true.
tried,
because-
but we couldn't pull it off. So
yeah.
I mean,
might be an unknown distinction in the history of musical Jehovah's Witnesses
when
from those decades.
when my son was 6, we shot a movie about him that we called it Lifetime Achievement Award, and the conceit of the movie was that he was a star who had been working in Hollywood since the teens, and he was the star of every famous movie ever. So we like basically made my 6-year-old kid reenact Gone with the Wind, James Bond, Shaft,
Shaft. Shaft.
yeah, and we tried to make everything innocent. So when we had my wife at the time, she was like supposed to be one of his conquests when he was James Bond, but he's just jumping on the bed and she's like, "Oh, James, you're such a tease." And when we put him in Psycho, but instead of a knife, he had a spoon. So we did the best part about it was we didn't think anybody was going to see any of it except us and our friends, and we kind of had safety. So
Right, yeah.
insane to me that any of that shit is in a film that is now actually showing in movies.
Yeah.
Did not expect that.
Yeah,
Thanks,
how do you guys feel? I don't know. We have to wrap this up soon a little bit on my end, but would you guys talk about how do you feel? I'm sure you probably already have, but are you overwhelmed by the reaction to the film? Or Ryan, how have you been feeling? Just kind of what were your emotions when it is public, right? I can say that it won.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
It won an award. It won Best Documentary Feature at Genre Blast Film Festival out near DC in Winchester, Virginia. It was so cool that they awarded us that. It's amazing.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Extremely emotional.
Yeah.
I don't look it right now, but I will never forget this year. This has been really wild. And I just wrote a big post on Facebook about this a couple days ago. About the fact that when this was all happening, Scott wanted to interview me and I was like, sure, why not? So, but I was nervous, but I was like, well, I don't know this guy. And if he's like most of the people I know, he's got this idea and he wants to do it, but it'll never actually happen. So it's not going to hurt too much to interview him, and maybe it'll wind up on YouTube or something, but I'm not like everybody's going to see this. And then that's not Scott. Scott's ambitious and he gets shit done. So
I mean, look at him.
Happened, and then it's like, oh, we're doing a showing in Madison, and I'm like, even up to that point, which was only like 6 months ago or whatever now, I was still fucking nervous. I was like, I don't know if I want to go to this. In the morning of the show in Madison, I wasn't sure. I got up that morning and then I decided, okay, I'm going. And I got in the car and I drove 3 hours over to Wisconsin, and that helped. I think it was really important for me to go there and see a bunch of people watch it and watch them respond to it and have.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Positive. And that just changed it for me. But yeah, it was really stressful, actually.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I can imagine. I had something on the tip of my tongue that I'm now forgetting. Oh, but you guys actually connected over this. Is that right? Or
yeah,
okay.
Neither of us had known each other, ever met, ever talked until that interview. Like when Ryan and I are meeting each other on camera. I mean, he's on camera.
Oh,
yeah.
Like,
wow. Okay.
We had like a 10-minute conversation. I was like, no, I don't want to. Let's not talk about that until the cameras are rolling.
Wow. I kept trying to just like make small talk with Scott, and he's like, "No, wait till I've got the camera going." I'm like, "Okay, whatever, man." I got my company to send me out to Colorado for work, so that I could just also meet up with Scott while I was there.
Yeah. But
Wow.
I'd known of Ryan because I knew all the people in the film while I was in Minneapolis. And I knew of Ryan because everyone was talking about some guy that I'd never met, and then how he wasn't in the religion anymore. And I didn't know the circumstances around it. I didn't know Rhett. I didn't know any of the other people at the core of the scene, like the original core. I knew like all the people that kind of came up underneath their umbrella. And that's like Ryan and Cindy and Chad and a few of the young, like we're all like 7 years younger. So they had like a first gen and a second gen.
Yeah.
And I just knew there was drama and not what it was. But then and then he became like the poster child, I like to say, of everything you're not supposed to do. He was like the ultimate apostate, talking about things on the internet. It was like that was the first person to ever talk on the internet about the religion.
It's funny because I didn't actually go out of my way to become the godfather of the apostates, but that's kind of what happened. And I'm glad now, right? Like, but it's funny because it's like, that's one of the funny things about the internet, right? You put your stuff out there, you don't hear anything back. You don't know who's listening, who's watching, who's reading.
Yeah.
And then people come to you like later and are like, you changed my life. And I'm like, thanks.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. Congrats to both you guys. I just think I think it must be very, very validating. And it should be. It's putting yourself out there and telling your whole story. But it's a story that a lot of people, not just from JWs, but can relate to if they've been, especially if they've been other, almost any number of other religions.
Yeah, it's just very humanizing, I think, and the response has been great. And people that aren't even related to religion are interested in this, especially people who have been in religions, though any kind of religion can relate. I've had Catholics come up to me like, "Oh my God, that's like a movie about my own culture," or just general Protestantism. But I imagine there's like different groups around the world, and it doesn't always have to be related to religion. It could be like a home culture or something.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
The mouse just walked across the room.
Well, you've been drinking a lot, so we can't.
No,
I don't know if we
I
should
think it's
trust
an
what
actual real
you're
mouse.
telling us. Oh, okay.
Total
Turn
hallucination.
the camera around, man. No, I'm kidding.
What kind of cigars are those?
Good California cigar. That's where we are, but it's got them. Yeah.
No, I've got my Michigan cigars are in the other room.
Nice.
We appreciate the praise, Wes, but I would love to have
thanks.
you talk about your music while we have you on. I'm not sure we're going to do this every week with you, so could you talk about where you're at and what kind of music you got out?
Yeah,
with
what
your
are you
album?
doing next?
Well, it's funny. When you said about second adulthood number 2 before, the one of my favorite quote, which I was on the tip of my tongue, is from Nietzsche. It says, "Late youth preserves long youth." It's a quote that
I
try.
that.
Late youth preserves long youth. I try to tell myself because, that sense of
This guy.
nice. Got a whole bunch on my bookshelf here. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. It is a. This is not really answering your question, but yeah, it's a challenge. Probably my personal greatest challenge is the sense of that you lost all that time. Both in the organization and then figuring out who you are after being in the organization, which is also a very time-consuming process. So I've managed to have a little career in music, and I also feel like I'm kind of starting over, and I wish I could have done some things differently, but hindsight's always 2020. So my album is called Better Late Than Never, as a joke.
Nice.
Might as well do it now.
Love it.
Thank you, man. Yeah, it's been very gratifying. I've connected with a lot of XJWs. I haven't gotten to play it much because of it's basically my pandemic project. It was a long time in coming. And I have not, basically I'm working on an EP follow-up, and then next year I'm going to do a lot of kind of DIY touring in the Northeast and then in the Southwest also, where I have family and friends. And I'm very excited about that. I'm doing a lot of kind of the online stuff you do to put out music and art, and kind of learning the ropes for a lot of that, how you do it as best you can.
how many more Jehovah's Witness related songs have you got in you? Do you feel like you've kind of knocked it out in this album?
Thousands. No, I've I wrote the one song called "Isn't It Gray," and then a few others are very specific. And I think I probably got it out from the. I think I got the specifics probably out of my system, but I feel that one of the benefits of leaving a kind of a closed group is that you do see some tendencies just in society on the internet. Could probably have a debate about QAnon and other things that happen on the internet, which certainly have hallmarks of the thinking which we left behind from the organization. So I'm turning that's of like particularly intense interest to me. So lyrically, it's a little more where I'm headed. But yeah, no, I sort of feel like I got it out of my system and it felt good. And I haven't really been able to play the songs much except occasionally on Twitch because of the pandemic. So now I'm actually looking forward to finally getting out there and kind of doing it.
Well, if you ever come within reach of the Twin Cities area,
yeah, I'd love to.
You guys could do a show together. Could be a whole
I
thing.
would do that. Absolutely.
Yeah, it'd be fun. No, I definitely. I've never been out there. Never been out to the.
I mean, most of the Midwest is not super exciting. Not gonna lie, but the Twin Cities ain't bad. Twin Cities ain't bad. There's a pretty cool culture out here. It's not unlike a Seattle kind of culture. It's, you don't have to go very far before you get to mega hat wearing farmers, but in the city, it's pretty cool. And I don't mind it. I'm not exactly a huge homer from Minnesota because we have winter that is legendarily bad. But at least during the winter, you have an excuse to stay inside and make music.
Right.
When is your tour then, Wes? And where can people buy your album?
People can go to it's on Spotify, it's on my website wesleydavidmusic.com or most social sites at Wesley David Music.
Cool.
Makes a great gift for
everybody. Should get a copy
somebody.
Of your record for their loved ones and themselves. 2 copies.
Send one to your Jehovah's Witness family for Christmas.
Warn them first. Be like, hey, you're not gonna like this. But
I'm actually interested in all the stuff that you will write that's not related to the Witnesses. Not that I have any issue with the music related to the Witnesses, because that's very cathartic. But I've found that that's not a topic I feel like singing about anymore. And I did go through a phase and I need to get it out of my system. But it's an interesting thing for me is the moving on and getting creative about the rest of your life after that.
Right.
It's an interesting topic too.
Let me turn that question around to you, man. Can you give us a hint of new music you're working on? Do you feel like the lyrical themes are reflecting kind of some of the aftermath of being the organization, or are you going in a totally different direction? Or
no, I think they're really more about my life now. My life now isn't very much about that anymore. It's funny. The last song that I'm going to play this in 2 weeks. There's a song that I did called Ostrich. There's a video online for it. And
it's very fun, by the way. And some of it made in the film. There's lots of things being destroyed in this video. It's really fun.
It's about me kind of being like, I've got my head in the sand. I don't want to hear about all this bullshit anymore. And
I like it.
I'm good where I am. I'm just down here counting the grains with my head in the sand.
I like it.
And I've been really curious about where my next artistic direction is. So the short answer is I don't know, and that's cool.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, some of the best art is made from that not knowing place,
I do a lot of Buddhist sitting meditation and writing practice and things to kind of just dig in and see what's going on down there.
Right.
And I think that's where my music will be going.
That's cool. I had a therapist who's I like the guy who's written some of the books. I managed to see 2 or 3 sessions, which were helpful. Actually, one of the things he told me is that it's okay. Like sticking your head in the sand. That's actually okay whenever you need to, especially as we are so inundated with 24/7 news cycle of mostly bad news, is that it's okay to live your life and not feel like you must be the most informed person on your block about every tragedy or every crazy event that's happening in the world. The pandemic, one of the weirdest thing about the pandemic is that it made it tough to do that. It made it tough to be able to have some space away from the news cycle for me, I feel like. But
Yeah.
We can probably save that for another podcast talking about the pandemic and all that craziness. So, but
yeah, it's been a it's been a really the pandemic hasn't really been great for much of anything, but it has been good for having some time to introspect and some time to kind of think about what you want to do. And I'm kind of sick of spaced away from people, right? Like that's one of the negatives of my life in general, and the pandemic made it worse. But we do live in a world where a lot of stuff is really fucked up and there's a lot of bad news, and maybe that's why this whole thing, why the three of us are having the conversation right now, right? Like, because this matters to all of us for one reason or another, that we're doing this. Otherwise, we'd all just like do our day jobs and yeah. I don't have anything profound to say about it other than like, the pandemic's been tough for me too.
Yeah. Hopefully after this winter, we will. I don't know. I guess I can't make any predictions.
I'll throw one thing at you.
Fingers crossed.
Indie musician to indie musician.
Yeah.
You may not be familiar with it, but there's a thing called the RPM Challenge. Are you familiar with the RPM Challenge?
No, I haven't heard of it.
It started out in New Hampshire. There was a newspaper out there, and they did this idea of Record Production Month. It's kind of like National Novel Writing Month, which starts in November in a couple days here. But Record Production Month is in February. And go to rpmchallenge.com. You can sign up. And it's basically a challenge in which you're supposed to record an album of at least 10 songs or 35 minutes during the month of February and have it done. You can't start tracking till midnight on February 1st, and you have to stop tracking at midnight on the last day of February. And I did it for one of my albums, the Trumpet Marine, Louder, Longer, Lobster, I did as a RPM challenge, and one of the High TV records was done for RPM challenge. So
it's good, and I use a lot of it in the film and other previous projects with actually be coming out.
Yeah, it's a fantastic record. And I always just tell any indie musician, if you're looking for, since I think creativity sometimes thrives with constraints and with deadlines, consider RPM Challenge. Go to rpmchallenge.com. It could be good for you whether you ever show anybody else the resulting product. It's a fun thing to do.
It just sounds like it's a lot of that's a lot of music to write in the space of a month and record.
You could write it in advance and just record it.
Okay.
But a record this February. Fun. I'm just gonna throw it out there. I've done it a few times. It's a lot of fun.
That reminds me. I've started sending Ryan different XGW artists that I was meeting along this journey, and you're one of the first ones, Wes. And I sent him some of your music to listen to.
Oh, sweet.
With the idea that it would be so cool to have artists that are on the outside collaborate. And I hope that like you could be an artist that would record a track or something or an album.
Yeah,
the Nuclear Gopher studio once it's up and going.
Yeah, I'd love to. That'd be fun for sure.
Cool.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah, I love doing the collaboration thing, and I'd love to hear more of what you make. I'm glad I think we should pimp your stuff a little bit here. You know, we got you on here as a guest, so usually just Scott and I making dreamy eyes at each other.
Well, I appreciate being on. Yeah, man, I would love to, for sure. I'd love to connect. That'd be fun. And I hope you guys are. I don't have to tell you this. You both are aware of the thriving Reddit community, right? 60 something thousand strong. Have you been posting stuff about Witness Underground on there? Or?
A little bit, like once every few weeks. The last just like there's like 3 times in the last month, but that's it. I just kind of started actually just kind of poking around there. You recommend it?
Oh my God. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Reddit can be a little funny about like self-promotion, but it also, you can also have anybody else post sort of on your behalf, like, hey, check out this amazing thing by this person. I just think it's a pretty like active community on there. They would love the film for sure.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to have you post our stuff on there.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I can post your record on there to make it work. So.
The mouse
Cool.
is back. The mouse is back.
Well, that might be a
Brand
good end
precedent.
to our film right there. Ryan seeing creatures.
I think it's trying to figure out how to get the hell out of here. I don't think it knows how it got in. Well, hey, this was super fun meeting you, man. I
Yeah.
really
You
appreciate
too,
it.
man, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks
Thanks
for coming
for-
on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Everybody go buy Wes's record. You can buy the vinyl, you can buy the CD, you can listen on all of the streaming platforms.
All of them.
All of them.
Yeah.
And come watch our movie at Portland Film Festival. And if you can, fly to Minneapolis for November 12th and party with us all night that night.
Or if you're already in Minneapolis and you don't have to fly, that's even better.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Also, tell other people about this damn movie. We need
Yeah,
people who
right.
watch this to tell their friends and family and other people we don't know.
Yeah.
Scott made a great movie. Tell people about it.
Yeah, amazing, Scott. Everything from you do this for a living. Everything from the cinematography to the editing is fantastic. Like it's really well paced. The story is well laid out. It's like really freaking great. So
Thank you so much.
congratulations to you guys, and Ryan. Good luck playing, man. On the I'm looking forward to seeing the live show. So
I'll do my best not to
Godspeed.
screw it up too bad.
All right, guys.
All
Take
right.
care.
Great.
Thanks.
Happy night.